Welcome to another episode of Sideline Sanity with me, Michelle Tafoya, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There's never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. If you only ever listen to just one of my podcasts, I hope this is the one. What you're about to hear is a story of insanity. We know this stuff went on during the pandemic. We know that people were ostracized. We know that careers were lost, jobs were lost, families were divided. This man is from Canada, Jessie Johnson. He owned a pizzeria, ironically called Without Papers Pizza. Unfortunately, it was someone who was without papers who sat down in his restaurant that spelled the end of his 20-year restaurant. It broke his family. And you're going to hear every detail told from someone who is still broken and trying to heal from what was done to him by the Canadian government. I really hope you'll listen to this because this is just one example of what's happened to us as a society, as humans, in the last few years. And I hope at the end you'll consider supporting this man and his future. Again, if this is the only episode of Sideline Sanity you ever listen to, I will be grateful. It's that important.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michelle Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michelle Tafoya.
So I met Jessie Johnson online, and his email address reads proprietor, Without Papers Pizza, and POW Pizza. Or is it POW Pizza, Jessie?
I think now it's POW.
Your story is remarkable. I saw it. I said, I've got to talk to this guy. Take us to the beginning. You were doing what with your life when the pandemic hit?
I was a restaurateur for 20 years. I was a pillar of my community. I was an institution in Calgary. My restaurant was all about a chi, a vibe, a vibration. I learned a long time ago in the restaurant industry that although we did exquisite food, people didn't seem to remember the food, and it was more the feeling that they held on to. And Without Papers was all about that. It really was truly a beautiful space that was full of energy. We were lined up 7 days a week. And then the pandemic came, and on March 16th, 2020, was the first day of the lockdowns. On that day at Without Papers Pizza, I had 30 employees. On Wednesday, I had to do payroll, and by Wednesday, I was down to 10 employees. The government essentially closed us down and took away all our businesses and made us completely reimagine the way it was that we were going to stay in business. So we went from a restaurant that was predominantly dine-in, and I would say 85% of our revenue came from dine-in, and we had to transition immediately to a 100% takeout model. It was a bit odd, and it was also very depressing, to be quite honest with you. It took me 20 years to get my restaurant to where it was, and for all of a sudden it to be destroyed over this virus caused me quite a bit of concern.
Now you're saying the virus, if for people who can't see us but are just listening, you put the air quotes around it. First of all, was your place always called Without Papers Pizza?
It was always called Without Papers Pizza.
What's behind that name?
It's a play on the term WAP. Originally, we wanted to call it WAP. WAP is a maybe derogatory term for Italian American immigrants, and we decided that maybe it's best that we don't call it that, even though I think most people don't even really know what the term means. And one day we were waiting to open. We were waiting for permits, to be honest with you. And we had some food critics in because we had a previous restaurant and we were already well known within the city. And they came to do a write-up on us. And one of them asked whether or not we're going to have any affiliation with the Neapolitan Pizza Association, which is an association out of Italy that dictates, if you want to use them, that you have to use these tomatoes and this flour and these ingredients. And my business partner, the chef, was there. And as most chefs are prone to be, he was a little bit hot under the collar. And he said, no, there's no way we're going to be part of any organization. We're going to be without papers. And at that moment in time, I realized, you know what, I'll call it Without Papers. And most people will refer to it as WAP, and that'll just be the short name of it.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Thank you.
So you said you noted the date, and everyone remembers March 2020 and where they were when they found out they were going to be locked down and what they were going to have to do, and et cetera. But as I mentioned, you said the virus in quotation marks, in air quotes. What did you mean by that?
Well, I was skeptical right from the get-go, to be quite honest with you. We started to get bombarded on the news with all these tales of death and horror, but yet I didn't see anything of it. And the only thing that I saw that reminded me of horror was being locked in our houses and told to be afraid. But we complied. I was a hero throughout the apocalypse, and I refer to it as the apocalypse. We complied with everything. We closed, we opened, we closed, we opened, we masked, we distanced, we did everything. And the only thing that I couldn't abide by was being asked to discriminate my fellow man for something that they decided to do with their body, and it was my feeling that there was no way I was going to judge a single one of my customers. The good Lord will judge you, not me.
And so by judging them by whether or not they got vaccinated, is that what you're talking about?
That was exactly it. Yeah, the city of Calgary came forth with the vaccine passport. 13 corrupt city councillors, after conferring with nobody, essentially decided that they were going to divide society with the passport, whose only science was political science. And it disgusted me. It was not only that it was just disgusting in its very essence, it was ridiculous in that. So the unvaccinated were allowed to come into the restaurant. They just weren't allowed to sit down in the restaurant. I was allowed to work the restaurant unvaccinated. My staff was allowed to be there unvaccinated. The whole purpose of it was just to solely punish and make example and humiliate the unvaccinated. And I was not going to be any part of that. On top of that, we had already suffered now for 18 months throughout the apocalypse. And now I just thought to myself, okay, so the government wants me to do what now? They want me to completely alienate, 25% of my customers, to tell them that they are so filthy, disease-ridden rats that they're not allowed to come into my restaurant right now, which to me meant that they were never going to come in. And in the restaurant industry, we need to have 100% in order to make it, to operate at 75% is pure folly.
All right. There's so much here. I can't wait to get into this more. We're going to take a quick break. Jessie Johnson of Without Papers Pizza. What happened when unvaccinated people came into his restaurant? We're going to find out how they were treated differently by the government there. That's right after this. Well, economic experts are writing, and I quote, a food shortage could be coming even in the U.S. And I think already we're seeing signs of that, supply chain issues. Well, imagine the worst. Imagine another 9/11. Imagine another pandemic, and you can't find the food that you need. What if you had your own little stockpile in your very own pantry, or sitting in the basement, or somewhere where you could keep it tucked away for that rainy day? Well, that's why survival food, that's what we're calling it, is important. You can create that stockpile by going to 4patriots.com and buying the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. Now, this isn't ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years survival food, handpicked right in a family-owned facility in the USA and giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, sturdy, water-resistant. They stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And that's assuming that we still have gas stoves to boil water on. Either way, you'll have something. And right now you can go to 4patriots.com. Use the code Michelle, that's Michele, to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous year-long guarantee after you order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And we love that. And we thank them for that. Just go to 4patriots.com. Use the code Michelle, Michele, to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, the number 4patriots.com, code Michelle with 1 L. Start building your own stockpile and start today. Okay, Jessie. So you said that unvaccinated people were allowed to walk into your pizza place, into your restaurant, but they weren't allowed to sit down? How did that work?
That's right. So they had set up a rule that the unvaccinated were allowed to come in. You could get your takeout pizza. You just weren't allowed to sit down to eat it. And that's, it was ridiculous. And on top of that, I also read into it that, my biggest worry was that I was never going to take that injection. And when they came forth with this mandate, the way that they had done it all throughout the apocalypse was, take a little bit, stop, take a little bit, stop, take a little bit, stop. And when I read that I wasn't allowed to serve the unvaccinated anymore, to me, the next step was, I'm not even going to be allowed to own this restaurant anymore unless I submit myself.
And you didn't want to get the vaccine. Why? I'm curious.
I'll be honest with you. At first, I wasn't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't an anti-vaxxer at first. I really wasn't. And I was a bit naive about it. I've never been politically active in my entire life. I've been as apathetic as the next Canadian. But to me, everything just seemed very, very, very fishy. And especially at this point, 18 months into it, where I still didn't know anybody who had, who had died, and very few who had gotten sick. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to stand back and I'll be the last one to get this shot. Since then I've become a vehement anti-vaxxer. But at first I just wanted to respect everybody's rights to do whatever they wanted to do with their body, the one that God gave them, not the government.
Well, I say amen to that. And clearly so does my dog, Jersey, who you can hear in the background. I apologize for his barking, but he's quite vociferous about this topic. So once you found this, I think when we look back at the insanity of the mask mandates and the whys, why this and not that, why 6 feet and not 5, all of these arbitrary rules, this one to me just is ridiculous. So you can walk into your restaurant and pick up a pizza and take it home, but you cannot sit down and eat it unless you presented a vaccine passport. And this was, you mentioned these 12 corrupt council people. What makes you believe that they're corrupt?
Well, they essentially instilled medical apartheid upon society without talking to a single one of their constituents. To me, that in itself is a sure sign of corruption. That vaccine passport was the most heinous crime ever enforced in Canada. It literally divided our nation, pitted family against family, peer against peer. It was the catalyst for the trucker movement. And, in my opinion, my life will forever be defined by, before the vaccine passport and after the vaccine passport. Before the passport, we all suffered equally under the oppression. After the passport, the suffering became disproportionate, and some suffered not and others suffered whole. It was a heinous crime. Truly was.
All right, we're going to talk to Jessie Johnson more about his life after the vaccine passports right after this. Hey, you've got to start taking care of your liver now more than ever. And why is that? Well, because the latest data from the American Heart Association indicates that adults with fatty liver were 3.5 times more likely to have heart failure than those without. The American Liver Foundation says that 100 million Americans have fatty liver, which means many people are at risk. We throw everything at our livers. We throw cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, Tylenol, statins, cigarettes. That's why so many of us have a sluggish fatty liver that makes us gain weight and lose energy. For decades now, your liver's helped you with over 500 key functions every day. So it's time you help your liver. There is a solution, Liver Health Formula, an all-natural supplement which contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. Manufactured right here in the United States of America and approved by American doctors. So if you're looking to ignite your fat-burning metabolism, boost your energy, and transform how you look and feel, try Liver Health Formula and receive 5 free gifts when you order today. First, you'll get a free bottle of nano-powered omega-3 to keep your heart healthy. And you'll also be getting 4 free ebooks to support every aspect of your health. Try Liver Health Formula by going to getliverhelp.com/sideline and claim your 5 free bonus gifts. That's getliverhelp.com/sideline. Okay, so the vaccine passports were bizarre. I only had to show mine in New York. That was the only place that I experienced having to show it at a restaurant. But it was bizarre. It was like, that's why I find this so intriguing with the name of your shop, Without Papers Pizza, because this was like showing papers, right? This was like saying,
It was exactly
here, I'm
it,
acceptable. I've got my papers. Here's my vaccine passport. And the digital ones, my God, those are in retrospect really scary. And I didn't have one of those, but I know people who did, which means that, you know, people have digital records of your health. People that aren't your doctors, whatever. We could go on and on. So the vaccine passports beforehand, as you said, we were all equally oppressed. Afterwards, it was this division of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. What's business been like for you? What's happened since the vaccine passports and you decided I'm not discriminating?
The vaccine passport was introduced on September 20th, 2021, and I came out in opposition to it on that very day. The following 2 weeks were the most intense, harrowing, traumatic experience of my life. We literally went from being heroes to being vilified. A community that I lived in, where I raised my children, where I helped raise many children, where half the children's first job in that neighborhood was through me, who loved me. They literally turned on me. The propaganda that came down upon me was the most intense I've ever seen in my life. So we stood up in opposition to it on September 20th, and on October 9th, the authorities came in and they evicted us from our space. And I've been shut down since. They literally took a business that was generating. I was doing $2.5 million in revenue a year out of that space. I was collecting tax. I like to say I was a free range human on a giant tax farm. And I was doing my job for society to make sure that everything ran through. They closed me down. And my space is still empty to this day. It's near 17 months, I believe, since it's been closed. It sits there empty. All my chairs, all my tables, exactly where I left them. It is a testament to tyranny.
You've got to be sick when you think about that. It's got to make you absolutely sick. When you say that people turned on you, and the people who knew you turned on you, how did you see that? How did that manifest itself? What were you seeing, experiencing, living through that you knew that these people had left your side?
It broke my very soul. I had expected that my 20 years in the industry would cause people to reflect before they cast judgment, and to see that I was an outstanding member of my community. I gave both my time, my product, and my money when asked for and when not asked for. I was a mentor to many, and we were very well respected in the restaurant industry. And I knew that I shouldn't say every restaurant, but most restaurateurs during the apocalypse invariably came to my place. We would shut down at a very early hour during the apocalypse, 8:00, let's say, and we'd be stuck by ourselves. There was nowhere to go. Everything's locked down, and so people just came, and other restaurateurs came, and we would sat night after night after night and just think to ourselves, what's going on? What's going on? They're literally destroying our business. They're likening going to a restaurant to be akin to going to a leper colony. And I had realized that a lot of these restaurants were very afraid to speak up. because there had been examples previous to us, the Whistle Stop Cafe and Mirror, Adamson's Barbecue in Ontario, and just a couple others. But there was not very many that spoke up. And I think one of the reasons that occurred was what the government did essentially was make us dependent upon them in order to survive. So, I mentioned that day in March, they took our customers away. And then shortly afterwards, they gave us a few crumbs and gave us a few dollars and said, listen, you keep this money and, you're going to need it because you don't have any more customers and we'll get back to you. And then 2 weeks later, they would come back and say, we're still going to lock you down. So here's a little bit more money, but you better shut up. You better not be talking up. And everybody understood that if they were to speak out against the narrative, that they were going to be shut down and then be on the hook to money owed to CRA, which is essentially, the worst person you could possibly imagine owing money to. In my opinion, you'd be better off that you owed money to the Hells Angels.
What is the CRA?
CRA is the Canada Revenue Agency.
Okay, so it's like the IRS here in the United States, right? Okay.
Yeah. And so I had expected that some people were going to come out and defend me. And I was shocked to learn that nobody would. Literally nobody stood up for me. I stood up for everyone and nobody came to my side because, if they did dare to see, not even to support me, just to even try to defend me and to defend my character and to defend the nature of our restaurant, they would have received the same retribution I did, which is to be destroyed.
This is amazing. I think Canada has revealed a lot about its government through this whole thing. What's your status now? Do you have a business at all?
I am trying to recover, to be quite honest with you. So they shut me down in October of last year, and last year was an interesting year for me. My purpose switched from my restaurant, in which I spent 7 days a week, to literally protesting. I became a professional protester of sorts. We were holding rallies outside the restaurant. Then we started having big rallies in Calgary every week. And then a year ago at this time, I was at the Coutts border blockade in southern Alberta. We had set up a position at the border to demand that all vaccine mandates be rescinded and that we be given back our God-given rights and be equal amongst Canadians. So we did that. I went to Winnipeg after that, where we held the legislature building, and I was on my way to Ottawa, but that got busted up by the Emergencies Act and Trudeau's follies of destroying any dissent whatsoever. And so that continued on until about late March of last year, and at which time I opened up that little POW Pizza. It's literally just a little outdoor seasonal pizza place in the interior of British Columbia. When they came and confiscated my restaurant, the one thing that they didn't get was my pizza truck. I was so busy at my restaurant that I couldn't handle the volume inside with all the takeout and delivery and dine in. And so we had a pizza truck that we parked outside that would do all our takeouts and deliveries. When they came and confiscated my place, I managed to elude them with that. And I took it to a small parcel of land that I had in British Columbia, and we built a little deck. And so that kept me busy for the summer of last year. And now this winter, I'm trying to mend, to be quite honest with you. I never understood. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And what I spent my life building and accumulating, that restaurant to me was defined me. It was my every nuance. It was my every eccentricity. I loved it. And when they took that away from me, and then I don't even know if it was the taking away from me. It was the hate, and it broke me, to be honest with you. So I'm trying to recover, and I'm almost there. I've learned that the biggest thing is that you have to let the past be the past. I replay everything that happened in my mind a million times over, and I was very angry at a great many people, and it wasn't so much the people that spoke out against me. In a way, I almost think, well, at least they had an opinion. It was the millions who stayed silent while I was literally lit on fire in the street.
It's a remarkable time to be alive and to see this happening in Canada and in the United States, where fear is being used against people, keeping them quiet, or making them say things that maybe they don't actually believe. Um, I guess I'm sitting here in a little bit of shock. I knew what was happening in Canada, but not to this extent. And you've given us a window into it. And I wonder what Canadians, where are you as a country right now? Because here in the States, it really did, as you probably saw, this whole vaccine and pandemic became a very political issue. It became less about health and more about politics and anger and rage and fear. And I'm getting the sense that Canada was similar. We saw it with the truckers, and some people have said that whole truckers thing was a theater created by the far right. I still don't buy that. So when you hear something like that, and when you look at the Canada right now with this clown Trudeau, sorry, due respect.
No, please.
I think he's a clown. I think he's an idiot. And I don't know why we as countries, as these massive populations, have given up so much to these idiots. Where is Canada right now?
Divided. I don't know that we'll ever be able to come back together. There are a lot of people, you mentioned that there's a lot of people that think that trucker movement was a far right movement, and it was nothing of the sort. It was literally everyday Canadians, families, children, mothers, fathers, getting together and demanding that, everybody be treated exactly the way that we've been treated for our entire history, which is equal. I try to explain to people that, the censorship that has existed in Canada for the last 3 years and possibly longer is dystopian, Orwellian in nature, and the propaganda that has existed is tremendous. We learned quickly on in my destruction that the mainstream media was essentially our enemy. And, if I talked to CBC, and I had given interviews to CBC where I've said yes and they print no. And I try to, show that as example to my friends who are still asleep, on the Kool-Aid, I like to say. But the propaganda was very, very, very effective here, and it was pervasive. It literally was, if you think about in World War II, when Goebbels was doing the propaganda, he had his own guys. They would print their own publications, and they would put it up on the walls. Whereas here, the propaganda, we had to print it ourselves, and we had to put it up on the walls. And if we didn't put it up on the wall, we were to receive retribution. And, I remember going into a university last year and looking at all the messages of propaganda on the wall. I mean, there was hundreds of thousands of them, even just in my own little restaurant, there was, make sure you wear a mask, make sure you do this, failure to do this is going to result in this. It was pure insanity. And I don't know. It's still, it's a year and a half to this day. I've become a bit of a political figure in Canada, and I get attacked every single day, for speaking out, and it really it bothers me how people think that I'm the villain, that I did something wrong simply because I refused to submit to tyranny.
Yeah.
And they think, the Canadians are a very polite and order following people. And, for me to say that I wasn't going to follow this, it blew the minds of the left.
Has anyone come around, and any of your old friends or colleagues or anyone at all come around and said, damn, you were right. We were wrong. We're sorry. We support you now.
No. And you know what? I've been waiting for that day, and I had thought by now that, my very existence would be proof of the lie, in that, I myself have unvaccinated and have never been sick and have never contracted COVID. But you learn that the PSYOP was incredibly effective, and the brainwash was complete. People that I held in very high regard, who I thought, were very intelligent and very observant, still have not bought in or have not realized that, in my thing, all of it was basically a crock of poop.
I'm amazed by that maybe more than anything, because it does seem like there is information now circulating. You've got people in Canada, Australia, the United States, England, Jerusalem, Israel, wherever, with these studies that are showing how farcical a lot of this was. The masks, the 6 feet. We've heard people say, yeah, 6 feet was arbitrary. We just came up with something. I mean, it's insane to me that you aren't getting the support you deserve. How is your family?
This has divided my family, unfortunately, and yeah, um, I was very surprised at how many in my family as well were supportive of government and not of me, to be quite honest
What
with
about
you.
your children? You mentioned you have children.
I haven't talked to my kids in a year and a half, man. Um, I ripped apart my neighborhood, ripped apart my city with my stance, and they unfortunately, I think, felt some of the bullying from neighbors and friends at school, and yeah, it's been a very long time since I've talked to them.
I am so sorry for that.
It's all right, thank you.
I truly am, Jesse. I my respect for you is immense because you're standing on beliefs, not what you've been told to believe. And you've been very, very brave in the face of all of this and suffered more than anyone should suffer. And I can only hope for healing in your family and in your community, because this is just insanity to me. Absolute insanity. It makes me wonder where the hell all the reasonable people have gone. Um, bless your heart. You have a friend here, and have you thought about leaving Canada at all?
Hmm. I was in the United States in November and made my way down to Texas and drove a friend of ours' car back to Calgary who had fled Canada to escape the vaccine mandates. I know that I have a lot of support in your beautiful country. I would consider going to the United States, except your president won't allow me across the border.
Yeah. Which is, again, I can, if I don't laugh, I will join you in tears. And so I'm baffled at the time we are living in. I truly am.
It is truly, and as horrific as this experience has been, I truly am thankful that I was around to witness it. In my opinion, this is the greatest campaign of propaganda and mind manipulation that has ever existed in the history of mankind. And I'm truly in awe of whoever it is that could have masterminded such deception and conniving evil. And I've come to the conclusion that it can be no other than the devil himself.
Well, you've got support here, and I appreciate your sharing your story and your perspective. I only knew the very edges of it, and now knowing more, my heart breaks for you. And I wish you nothing.
I wanted to throw out a little pitch.
Yes.
Give, Send, Go has been set up for me. A lot of people think that it's folly, but I intend to hold the criminals responsible who shut down my business because a man sat down. And it does not matter what that man did with his body. He was a Canadian and should have been entitled the same rights, dignities as every other Canadian. And I'm going to hold everyone accountable for the crime that was destroying Without Papers Pizza. Without Papers Pizza was destroyed for refusing to check papers. And I believe that my story will be told for a very long time. There's no one that suffered more, and there's no one that's fought harder than me. I will succeed. I have since learned that the power of the human spirit is indomitable. If there's a mountain in front of me, the mountain shall move, and I will get justice. And the justice will not be just for me. It will be for the millions of Canadians who were persecuted and humiliated by that disgusting and immoral vaccine passport.
So a man sat down in your restaurant who was not vaccinated, and your restaurant was closed. Give, Send, Go. How can they find it under Give, Send, Go?
Give, Send, Go Without Papers Pizza.
Without Papers Pizza. And let's pray that we never have to be with papers again. Jessie, thank you so much for sharing this. You allowed yourself to be vulnerable with us. We appreciate that. I am pulling for you, and I'm going to Give, Send, Go right now. So Give, Send, Go, everyone. Without Papers Pizza. Jessie, you're, in my mind, you are a hero. You're the man in the arena, taking the slings and the arrows for all those who are afraid to. And I hope you're reunited with your family. And I'm so sorry that you've experienced what you've experienced.
Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the USA.
Thank you. This has been Sideline Sanity. Again, looking at tales of insanity that we're living through in this world right now in North America. This is not Cuba. This is not Russia. This is not China. This is Canada. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to be like Jessie Johnson and be brave and do good. Thanks for listening. Always a good day when Charles Thorngren of Legacy Precious Metals can join us and answer some really different questions. And I thought of a few new ones for you, Charles, if that's okay. Yeah, I'm fascinated, and we hear so much about gold and silver and precious metals. So if I could just ask this broad question, what is the role of gold in a portfolio?
Great question. And when we look at that, and the answer to that has a couple different features to it. It depends on the individual. But its main purpose is the insurance policy for your finances. It is meant to be the foundation by which you do all other things, right? We know that gold and silver have an inverse relationship to the dollar. It protects your purchasing power. So when we invest, that's what we're saying. We want to make sure that we have the ability to manage our money and have our money do what we need it to do for us. It's not the collection of dollars for dollar's sake, but for what it does for us, how we pay our bills, how we retire, how we feed our family, how we go on and bless others and donate to causes we believe in. That's what money does for us. It's not the dollar itself. It's the thing it provides for us. And what gold does is make sure that that money continues to have purchasing value.
Because there are times we find that, hey, my money doesn't have the same purchasing value it had last month.
Absolutely. And this is a unique time. We're seeing it. This term called hyperinflation, which usually refers to, inflation in the 18s and 20%. I consider this a time of hyperinflation because it's so much more than what we're normally used to, right? When we prepare and we budget and we say, this is the course of my life and this is how I'm going to do things, this is where I'm going to put my money, we use some basic numbers. 2 to 3% inflation, that's what the Fed says is good. But that's not even great. Over a lifetime, that's a lot of inflationary loss to your dollar. But when you have a period where it jumps to the points where we're at now, and we're in the 8.5s, 9s, going to be into the double digits soon, in this shorter time frame, that's a hyperinflation situation to me because it throws everything off dynamically and so radical.
You do see us going into double digits, huh?
Absolutely. The Fed even sees us going into double digits. There was an interesting report where one of the Fed chairman were saying, 2023, we're not going to talk about that. But in 2024, by summer, we may be able to start to drop the interest rates. When someone tells me they're in charge of something, but they say this new year that's coming, just forget about that completely. We're not even going to talk about that. That's a bad sign.
They don't want you to think about it.
Exactly.
They want you to look past it and sort of write it
Write
out.
it off right now. Just don't even think about it. It's going to be bad. But hey, 2024 though, and interestingly enough, right around the time of an election, they want to start talking about what they're going to do.
Isn't that fascinating? That timing is just really interesting. Before we finish up here, I'm always fascinated with how gold is priced. How do we get a price of gold?
The spot price of gold is really determined by the world market, the London Bullion Exchange, right? And this has been for hundreds of years now, sets a price, and the rest of the world revolves around that. Now, our currency will determine how much more than it is in the pounds and things like that. And there's a calculation for it. But that's one of the great things about gold and silver. Their value is recognized around the world. No matter what currency, what country you're in, it has value. I just recently come back from a trip where I was overseas not that long ago, and I bring gold with me everywhere I go. Not a lot, so don't try to catch me in the airport. But I have something that is valuable no matter where I'm at. I can go anywhere in any country and turn that into its currency in no time at all.
You're talking about carrying around physical gold?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Do you
How
walk
much is
around with
safe to
dollars?
carry around if you're, well, no, you're right. So if, and that gold is going to have the same value across the board, no matter where I go,
Slight
right?
deviations,
Because,
very slight deviations,
yeah,
but it's not very large.
okay.
Usually less than
Yeah.
1% difference in the
This is
price.
really interesting. I can't let you go before I ask you this because I'm picturing you now walking around with some, gold coins in your pocket. I'm thinking, wow, that would feel risky. But when you go into another country, for instance, with some gold, how easy is it for you to go say, here, I want to exchange this for, or, I'm assuming you're not going to a restaurant and slapping down a
No,
gold bullion or something.
no. But you could overseas. In certain places of the world, they recognize that just like regular currency.
Wow.
But I wouldn't use
But
gold for
it's
dinner.
easy to exchange once you get to another country.
Yeah,
Just
very easy. Most of the time, you can do it at the
interesting.
airport. Same places where they change currency, a lot of them will change metals too.
And is physical bullion the best way to go
It is. It really is.
when you're traveling, or always in any investment in gold?
There's certain things you can do outside of just bullion that may make sense once you've laid a portfolio down, right? Diversity in metals is important too, but your basis for all investments should be your basic bullion, whether it's gold or silver. You want to have that foundation set in the base metal itself, giving you the most value that you can get.
And obviously, every person's situation is unique. So why not just call and speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals? 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or they can always download your free investor's guide, right? It's at legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Do you have any gold on you right now?
I do. Give me half a second.
I got to see this. I just want to see. I mean, it seems like almost like in the old days when you walk around with that, Mr. Scrooge and his gold coins in his pocket. Not that you're Scrooge. Can you sort of turn it around and show us that? That's now for our listeners. They're not going to be able to see what we're seeing, but you've got a little container, and they're kind of the size of $50, right?
Yeah, just about a $50. And this is the American Gold Eagle, and this is $22,000 worth of metal.
Yikes. Charles isn't messing around, and neither are we. But please go get your questions answered. This is such an important time to be thinking about your money, your long-term play, in addition to every short-term concern that you have. Charles, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And you know what? 2023 is coming. Call now, find out, so you can make your decisions before then.
Yes, and before the elections again, and they can tell us what they're going to tell us then. They're telling you to overlook 2023. That means now's the time to inquire.
Absolutely.
Again, legacypminvestments.com. Charles Thorngren, always good to see you.
Thank you.